Hello, hello. I see people starting to come in, and I see a lot of similar names. So hopefully you guys will know the drill. We're gonna let this roll for a couple minutes, and then I'll intro Tim, and we'll get the chance to hear about his exciting updates from around the world. So just want to thank you all again for being with us and taking your time on this Saturday. You know, it's easy for me here in frigid Chicago. I have no interest in going outside at all. But for those of you elsewhere around the world, hopefully it's a bit different for you. So just thanks again for being here. We really appreciate you. Hey. Alice, Ann, hey, Anna, Helen, Janet, hey. Hey, Todd. Okay, yeah, Todd, I empathize with you. Probably a bit colder where you are than me, but hey, Lou, hey, Mary, hey, Sandy. Oh, Don, hey, good to see your name, man. I haven't exchanged emails with you in a while. Hope you're doing well. Zach, hope San Antonio's doing well. All right. Well, the trickle seems to have slowed down a bit, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Once again, thank you all for being here. We really appreciate you being a part of these mini conferences. We're really excited about these opportunities to share information and education and connect in this digital way that we can. So once again, we're critically grateful to Sandy Rivera and the Rivera Law Firm and the Oak Foundation Children First Fund, which is a fund of the Tides Foundation, for making these events possible. But I am excited to be here today with friend and colleague Tim Law, who is the co-founder of Ending Clergy Abuse, and he's an attorney in Seattle, Washington. He is Catholic, and in 2014, he became active at the local level to confront the archdiocese on the issue of clergy abuse. In 2015, he met Barbara Blaine, who's the founder of SNAP, and was introduced to the national and international dimensions of clergy abuse in the Catholic Church. In 2017, Barbara Blaine, Tim, and others conceived what became as ECA when they were in Geneva, Switzerland. And ECA today is an international association of survivors and advocates from 20 plus countries and 6 continents, whose mission is to compel the Vatican and the Roman Catholic Church to protect children from clergy abuse and to promote justice for survivors. So Tim is going to regale us with some exciting updates from around the world in our important movement. And with that, I will shut up and turn it over to Tim. Take it away.
Well, thanks very much, Zach and SNAP, for giving me this opportunity. Of course, without SNAP, ECA doesn't exist. We're coming on now the 5th year of Barbara Blaine's death. And this was her idea, to gather the voices of activists from around the world that she had made contact with over the years. And in August 2017, brought us together in Washington, D.C. and said, let's combine our voices and do this. At the time, it wasn't called ECA. We weren't quite sure what it would be called, or actually how it would even function. But she had a vision, and then, as we know, September, she died very suddenly. But prior to her death, she said, "Let's go to Poland. We need to bring an international group to Poland to help the local survivor community there." And so after her death, we decided we would continue with that, and that's become our model for how ECA has worked. And so we did go to Poland in November 2017, and at the time, Marek Lazinski, Anna Franciszka was leading the charge in Poland, and we brought Peter Saunders, Miguel Hurtado, Matthias Koch, Juan Carlos Cruz, and others met there. And we received a very chilly reception. It's not only cold in Poland in November, but the environment for doing any activism against the church in Poland was not favored at all. The press was afraid to cover us. And but look what's happened within a year after our November 17th meeting in Poland. Virtually all hell broke out in Poland, and now they are doing extraordinary work there, and things are happening. Even bishops are being called to task there, and that was we felt in November of 2017 it would take 20 years before Poland would be able to start having any moments like we had in the U.S., and yet it only took the next year before that to break open. From Poland, then we replicated that and went to Chile in January 2018 with supporting Juan Carlos Cruz and Jose Murillo, Jimmy Hamilton, and we all know what happened there. We met the Pope, gave him a nice greeting. He made some unfortunate statements that came back to haunt him, and that became the big event in 2018, the start of the big events in 2018, because shortly after that, the Pennsylvania grand jury report came out, the McCarrick scandal came out, the Pope again was greeted with ECHA survivors in Ireland. That became a disaster for him, so much so that because of the work of SNAP, the work of ECHA and survivors, the Pope was forced to call his Clergy Abuse Summit for the next year, February 2019. And that gave us an opportunity, ECHA and SNAP, Bishop Accountability, to coordinate our efforts and to coordinate the counter message to the bishops. And I felt, we were very, very successful in doing that. And that collaboration, continues today. At that time in February, we were calling for zero tolerance, release of the abuse files, mandatory reporting, statute of limitations reform, all the things that the UN, in fact, had demanded of the Vatican to do when SNAP and CCR took the Vatican to task at the UN in 2014. And we're still waiting on some of those things to come to fruition, but I believe we're getting there. Although we didn't get at the Pope Summit much resolution on those issues, it was the first time in history that a Pope said that clergy sexual abuse was an issue and a problem for every diocese all over the world, even in places like Africa and India. And that was a big deal for our activists in Africa, because the Pope said abuse occurs even here. It gave them the cover and the ability to go then publicly to their communities and countries to raise this issue. And eventually, the Pope would initiate or would promulgate zero tolerance in the Vatican State only. And then he set up his Vos Estis, where bishops, a bishop-controlled process to hold themselves accountable. And we know how successful that's been, although there have been some evidence of that. For the first time, sex abuse became a crime under canon law, and the abolishment of papal secrecy. Now, we know the deficiencies of all those pronouncements, but together we forced the needle to be moved, and now we can build upon those efforts. Also in Rome, 2019, the ECHA people that came from all over the world, 5 continents, 6 continents, they became rock stars back in their own countries. And so Matthias Koch in Germany goes back to Germany and leads the charge there. And we have seen the reports now coming out of Germany and the investigations, the results of those investigations, 2 investigations, in fact, 2018, and of course, most recent one, 2021. Of course, they're never totally complete, they're never completely satisfying, but it's happening. And so then in France, Francois Deveau, also a co-founder of ECHA, led the charge there for the amazing investigation that they had, resulting in the finding of 200,000 victims of abuse in that country over a 50-year period. And I just received an email from Francois yesterday, and he's involved now with two bodies there working on compensation for victims. And he is hell-bent on getting the church there to pay for the abuse. And they're expecting the first round of payments to occur this summer. The Pope still refuses to meet with that commission to recognize the institutional responsibility. But he says the influence of the church in France is collapsing. In New Zealand, Murray Heasley in New Zealand, he was at the conference in Rome, and now he's been very instrumental in the Abuse and Care Royal Commission that is occurring right now in New Zealand. $200 million has been allotted for a 5-year investigation study of institutional abuse there. So Murray is in the middle of that. Then breaking news, Miguel Hurtado in Spain, it was just reported yesterday that the Spanish legislature has authorized a state investigation of the church. This is an amazing result, and follows upon the work of Miguel and other survivors there in Spain. A few weeks ago, the Spanish church indicated that they were going to authorize an investigation, and with an independent attorney who happens to be a member of Opus Dei. So we know how that would have turned out. And but now the legislature there has taken up the charge. Other important actors, Francesco Zanardi from Italy, his Rete l'Abuso nonprofit has formed a coalition with 12 other groups in Italy, and getting more and more pressure upon the Italian government to do an investigation. In India, Virginia Sadhana, Joseph Kennedy are leading the charge there under very, very difficult circumstances. Uganda, as I mentioned, Janet Aguti, a young woman survivor there, is leading the charge there. And still in Africa, you'll hear an occasional story of abuse, but it's still not recognized as a widespread issue or problem. People are still very frightened, and the church and the government are still very, very tight in keeping control of information. But we expect one day that that tsunami, unfortunately, is going to be let loose, and we'll start hearing the stories from there. In Ecuador, we have Sarah Oviedo. In the Congo, Benjamin Kobo, all working to make this issue public and viable for their countries. In Mexico, Alberto Mendez and Alberto Athi are still very active, and now they're in communication with the Mexican Senate about doing an investigation. And so they're making some headway there. A new member of ECHA, Janez Sarar from Slovenia. So we have Slovenia now getting active. Argentina, of course, we have Sergio and Lucas. They're two Argentine lawyers that are just doing amazing work in the Provolo cases, bringing priests, nuns, others to court. and getting convictions for abuse there. And you know, there we know that Archbishop Jorge Bergoglio, Pope Francis, was active in cover-up of abuse in Argentina, and there is good work going on tightening up that case, you know, the cases around that that will implicate Pope Francis. It's my wish, expectation, that at some point, you know, Pope Benedict had that opportunity. Pope Francis would have that opportunity finally to say, you know, we all were involved, we all covered up, and I think that day is going to come. In the U.S., we're working with SNAP, Bishop Accountability, to engage Ambassador Joe Donnelly, Ambassador to the Vatican. He had initially agreed to meet with us, and then now he's gone dark and silent on us. I think he found out who we were or something. You know, somebody got in his head about we were dangerous people to meet with. But he did say he would meet with us, so we're going to follow up and hold him to that offer. We're also involved at the U.S. Senate level. We have a very good contacts there that we're working with. So then the most current thing where we had planned to do was, again, with the leadership of ECHA and with SNAP and Bishop Accountability, we were planning to go to Geneva, to the UN in May of this year, to pressure the UN, to pressure the Vatican to comply with their treaty obligations, to file their report responding to the 2014 Committee on the Rights of the Child's recommendations, and an international call for an independent investigation of the files controlled by the Vatican and the CDF. Unfortunately, as we were planning for that, the Ukraine war broke out, and so now we're going to postpone our May gathering in Geneva and postpone it to at least September, and hope the situation allows us then to go to Geneva. And what we'd like to do then is bring activists from around the world when we do get to Geneva, to again show the world that we are acting together on this. It's a worldwide problem, and to increase the pressure on the Vatican to respond and to act. So ECHA just truly appreciates the continued collaboration that we have with SNAP, and believes together we can continue to make a worldwide changes and continue to move the needle here with our obvious goal and righteous goal of protecting children and providing justice to survivors. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate the update. Taking the time to spend some time with us, and as we were talking about before everyone joined, cue us in on some of the smaller developments that make the bigger developments happen, that are, as we know, so critically important to making a change in a movement like this. So there are definitely some questions and comments that came in, so I'm going to try to address these in order. Apologies if I go out of order, folks. I'm not trying to slight you. Alyssa asks, I think, a really good question. What can Catholics do at the local level or outside of the church to change the culture in the Catholic Church, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, I mean, that is a concern of mine. I'm 73 years old and have belonged to the same parish for those years. And I've got 3 children, 10 grandchildren. So I've, have a vested interest in my community and my local church. And In Seattle, we have an active group of called Heal Our Church, HOC, very prominent Catholics and judges and lawyers and business people uh, asking of our bishop the same thing we're asking of Pope Francis: release the files, submit to an independent investigation, and with the object here to enter into a truth and reconciliation process. But first, you got to show your hand. You got to show what what went on. Be honest about the abuse, and so putting pressure on your local bishop to do to submit to investigation. So the same thing that we're doing internationally happens locally with your bishop. Same type of energy and effort. And I've seen groups like Heal Our Church. They've sprung up all over the country here and all over the world. As Zach mentioned, there's a lot of stuff happening, under the radar that is the fertilizer for change. I have the fantasy. What's going to happen is some little girl in the slums of Nairobi, something's going to happen that's going to lit the fire that is going to cause a worldwide change in the church's attitude, and that can only happen if what we're doing happens first. We've got to do this groundwork, and and that's what we're doing. And so, whatever efforts you can join in locally, they're happening. Join in and participate in those.
That's a great answer, Tim. I definitely agree with you. And Alyssa, to add on to what Tim said about local groups, just a couple I'm aware of off the top of my head that do some more national things are Catholics for Change, for being the number 4, and Awake Milwaukee. Both are great organizations, have worked with SNAP, I think are really trying to make a good change. So that's a good place for you to engage. And a really interesting question here from Anne about, Tim, do you think that the synodal process has been helping at all in terms of how the church is addressing these issues?
I guess the short answer is no. How can they have a synod without providing truth and justice on this issue? They're putting the cart before the horse. They should scrap the synod until they do the right and let known the truth and provide justice. Then a synodal process has a chance.
I think that is an excellent and concise answer, Tim. Well done. There was a good question here from Kathy, who wanted to know if you are aware of any efforts of ECA or potential investigations in Canada that might be new that you're aware of.
Let's see. I know a lot is happening. Leona Huggins is from Canada, and she's been very, very, very active. Evelyn Korkmaz is an Indigenous First Nations activist survivor, and they're going to court. They're working on the Indigenous, the industrial schools. A lot is happening there, and again, trying to force the hand of Pope Francis to acknowledge the church's institutional responsibility.
It's good to know, especially with just how large, explosive, and I think still to come in terms of the Indigenous residential schools are. So I'm glad to hear about that. That was a great question. Thank you, Kathy.
Both in Canada and the United States.
Absolutely. What was it? I think it was Deb Haaland, our Secretary of Interior, who said, we know what happened north of the border also happened south. And so hopefully our Indigenous populations here are able to get some justice on that as well. Yeah. Here's a question for maybe your legal expertise a little bit more, Tim. Sandra is saying, I'm involved in a California civil suit, but my abuser is now 80. And with the legal system working so slowly, I am wondering if confronting him now before he is served is appropriate.
The action is pending, or she's considering action?
I think that the action is pending. Sandra, and you can clarify in chat if you'd like.
Yeah, I don't have, I have, as I am a lawyer, but I have not been active in the clergy abuse cases myself, except for one. We represented a young man in Senegal who was abused by a priest out of Canada. So we were actually able to bring the case in Canada and got a good result in that case. But yeah, I don't have an answer to that question for her. Sorry.
I figured, but was asked. I figured I'd put it to you, and that's what we're. This is a good question that just came in. And Mary says that her local parish assistant pastor has been accused of having child pornography. And so, as a parishioner, in your opinion, what can she do? The police are involved and already investigating, but as a parishioner, what can she do to bring some more justice there?
Well, I mean, that's, I don't know what state she is in.
New York, I believe.
Oh, okay. Well, you have investigations going on there, and action with getting the bishops held accountable. And there's many groups in New York that to work with that. But that's a horrible. I mean, the fact that it's still happening and is deplorable. And now hook up with organizations that can find justice there.
I agree. And Mary, happy to work with you offline outside of the conference here on that one. Here's a question from one of our support group leaders, Deb. I hope you're doing great. She mentions that there are several ritual abuse survivors who want to take their abuse cases to court, but they're finding difficulty finding lawyers to represent them. Do you have any suggestions on how someone who has a story that to the average person might seem a little out there, harder to believe, how can they best find attorneys or professionals who are trauma informed to help and believe them?
Yeah, again, I don't do that kind of work. That's probably actually something that Zach might be able to more help direct and know who to. I know the ritual abuse is one issue that really has never been made more widely known about, and horrific, and but that's those stories too have to come out.
I agree, and I want to give a little bit of a shout out to Deb there, and that she's exactly the kind of person who is making it possible for those stories to come out and for those folks to get justice. So as pithy as it might be, Deb, we just need to clone you a bunch of times, and then that might make it easier. Susan asked an interesting question here. Tim, in your experience, how common is it for a state or government to do an investigation into clergy abuse and not release the findings? Are you aware of states in the U.S. that have done this specifically?
That have not released the findings?
Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, we get summaries, but we don't get, of course, raw files, and nor we need to protect victims in that process. Yeah, so I there's what 22, 25 attorney general investigations happening in various forms throughout the country with very, very mixed results, yeah, and not terribly satisfying in most cases, but does put the pressure on the church and should be happening. And if if you have the opportunity to put pressure on your AG to do more, to do so.
Yep, I agree with that. And I think one of the disappointing things is we saw a lot of AG investigations start, and they've been, slowly plodding along. There've been some great AGs like Michigan's AG, who has been providing consistent updates, right? New Jersey's AG was providing a lot of consistent updates. In Illinois, for example, we had a great preliminary report into the investigation that was released, but the following Attorney General has done no continued work on that report. So I totally understand, Susan, the frustration of seeing something start and not seeing it continue. And I think Tim's exactly right. It's on us to continue to pressure our attorneys general to release the reports, release their findings,
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I find too that in this work, it's when I first got involved, things were happening, and you keep looking for the kill shot, the one thing that's going to break this thing wide open and finally lance the boil, and then justice will prevail. And this is a marathon. This is a lot. This is going to, you got to relax, work hard, and take the long haul approach. And but when you move out and look over a span of 5 years or 10 years, you can see tremendous results. When you narrow in, what's happening today, it looks like we're dead in the water. So taking that long haul approach to this, being patient with yourself and keeping the pressure on. The arc of justice is long, but it bends towards justice. But we got to put our elbow onto that arc to make it bend. And, that's what all of you are doing, and keep it up.
Well said, Tim. I think that's a great reminder to look at what the progress has been, not just in the past couple of months here, but the past year, decade, and that's a problem I myself often have trouble with. So I appreciate that reminder. Here's an interesting question. It's funny, I've been discussing this somewhat independently, but we have Professor Patrick Fitzsimmons from the UK who wants to hear about your opinion on claims in recent years that screening techniques based on new polygraph systems could be effective to identify abusers early in their years of abuse. Have you heard about this system, or do you know much more about this issue?
I really don't. Yeah, I really don't. Again, that's not something that I have any personal or professional experience with.
Sure. Patrick, I can tell you, I have recently been discussing this issue quite a bit with a man named Dr. Paul Abramson, who is a professor in the University of California systems out west. And he gave me a very interesting, and we had a much longer conversation about this. I'd be happy to connect you with him so you can learn. But one line he said to me that really stuck out is that there is no valid diagnostic tool for pedophilia. Academics and researchers have been trying to construct one for decades. No one has yet that has passed any muster. And Dr. Abramson's argument is that when you see institutions, churches, going back to our first session today, sports teams, those kind of things, talk about how they've done a much better job recently compared to the past screening out abusers, is a red flag, because it's like, well, what is the evidence to say that? How can you prove that? How do you know you're doing a better job? There is no valid tool to diagnose pedophilia. So how are you doing it? I think it's a really important conversation, especially kind of cues us into some of the PR tips and tricks folks use to make their community members feel a little bit more at ease. So anyway, Patrick, happy to connect with you offline and connect you to Dr. Abramson. I think you would find that conversation valid. And then one last question here that you might have some input on, Tim. Are you doing any work keeping track of lay groups? For example, the Knights of Columbus have made themselves look like great child advocates, and I can tell you, based on my experiences, this is not the case. That's what question comes from Todd. Are you following any of these lay groups?
Well, just as maybe most of you all are in the news, things come up. I know there's a heavy conservative right-wing branch of the church, very well funded, that likes to pal up to us as long as we appear to be piling on Pope Francis. And we're not piling on Pope Francis. We're trying to bring justice here, and not, it's not personal to any one person. And of course, they're also trying to bring up other reasons and causes for the issue that are bogus. And so, trying to message against that. And so, it's the hard, it's hard because they're very, very well funded and have loud voices, but I think are representing a small minority of people.
I think that is very well stated, Tim. I've seen that same kind of thing of, I like to talk about these groups who pretend to use, or pretend to care about the experience of survivors, but in reality just use their stories as a cudgel to beat on whatever faction of the church they're opposed to at the time. And, I know a lot of survivors in our community have experienced that themselves and are wary of it, and hope others don't have their experiences used in the same way. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any more questions come in. I will make, Tim, I hope if other people have questions, offline that they think of later, I hope you don't mind if we share your contact information so they might ask and contact you and learn more about the great work that ECA is doing. But for everybody else, I just want to say again, thank you for joining us today. Grateful that you took the time out of your Saturday to be present with us and spend these times hearing from our partners about the great work that's going on around the globe. And what we're going to do is I'll share these recordings with you all early next week. And again, contact information for our speakers. So if you have any more questions, comments, you can make them. With that, Tim, thank you again so much for spending your time with us. So grateful to you, and especially for the work of ECA. You are wonderful partners and doing wonderful things for survivors around the world. So,
well, thank you very much, Zach, and thanks everyone, and for all that you are doing. Keep it up. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody. Enjoy your weekend.